Welcome back to Stars Volta, Season 1, Episode 6. We're here in Dallas, Texas, finally in my home city to interview our next guest. He is a 6', 210 quarterback for the Arlington Renegades. Prior to that, he played in the Spring League and spent some time in the CFL. And he comes from Fordham University, where he has several records with them as a quarterback, one of them being career passing touchdowns. He's originally from Florida, the pride of Boca Raton, Kevin Anderson. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. So, yeah, you are on the Renegades, and you guys are going to the championship.
We're going to the ship.
How does that feel?
It feels pretty amazing. I mean, especially because it's been a pretty wild season as far as, us getting in instead of St. Louis getting in. There's a lot of skepticism on Twitter about, hey, what's the XFL plan? Like, is this best for viewership? Which is a big part of their revenue model.
Yeah.
So the fact that we won that semifinal game and beat Houston, says a lot. Coming into championship game 5 and 6, there's gonna be a lot of doubters, but
Yeah.
I think that's fueling our fire a little bit.
Yeah. How sweet were those beers after?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, and there's nothing better than a locker room celebration. You're with these, and they're new friends. You
Yeah.
meet each other in January, but then you spend hours and hours a week together, and you develop a bond really close. And when you knock off a team that had beaten you twice and
Yeah.
share a facility with,
Yeah.
it was definitely a sigh of relief, and there was some celebrating going on.
Yeah. There weren't too many people who thought you were going to win that game.
No, I mean, we definitely, as far as us and our team, we knew we could win because it's pro football. I mean, we have everybody on our team has at least been to the NFL in some capacity.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat another pro team 3 times.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of in our favor that we had already lost twice.
Mm-hmm.
If maybe we had won that week 10 game and, we had beat them going into the game, they'd have a little more fire.
Yeah.
But I think because of those reasons, they kind of, overlooked us.
Yeah. So we'll get more into that in the championship coming up in a little bit. But let's get to the basis of how you got into football. You're from Boca Raton High School.
Yeah, I went to Boca Raton High. So
Mm-hmm.
Boca Raton High School. Grew up in Boca. My family's from Boca. Grandparents moved there from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Actually, way back when. My father's from Miami, so half my family's from Florida, half from Chicago.
Yeah.
And started at Boca High. I was a 3-year starter there. That's where my mom and sister actually work right now. So I was local product. Thought about going to St. Thomas out of middle school. Was very close to doing that. That's like the big draw for a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
Playing at American Heritage, St. Thomas, and
Mm-hmm.
chose to stay local with my childhood friends. And we never had a winning season, but somehow I was still able to go away to college.
You became the starter at sophomore year or junior year?
Yeah, going into my sophomore year. Senior year, I actually shattered my collarbone. So I didn't play my week 3 of my senior high school season.
Yeah.
Shattered my collarbone on my throwing arm and didn't finish the year.
Yeah.
So my junior year, I was first team all area and was a Super 11 selectee. But so I had a lot of praise, and that's we're in Palm Beach County, where
Mm-hmm.
Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade are kind of like the main 3 counties in South Florida for football.
Yeah.
Where Palm Beach is usually the little brother to them all.
Mm.
But so even, guys in that Super 11 with me, guys were like Will Likely, played for Houston.
Yeah.
He's a local guy with the same class. They're both top 11 players. Kelvin Taylor, who was with Orlando for a little bit, as a running back. So it's guys that go into elite schools.
Yeah.
From our county.
So, 1,700 yards passing, 11 touchdowns that junior year, 3 rushing. So you had to feel good going into your senior year. When you broke your collarbone your senior year, what did that do to you mentally?
Yeah, it was tough, especially because for a quarterback, that's like your livelihood is your throwing arm. So the whole recovery process, having surgery, I mean, there's a lot of just fatigue. Like the muscles, I didn't really feel like I did a good enough job, and whether that was people leading me in the recovery. It was kind of like surgery, arm in a sling for months, and then you go to college and they're trying to force weight on you, and it was how big and strong can you get? So there was a little bit of I don't know if it was the best recovery process.
Yeah.
So it had me mentally, how I'm feeling is, okay, my confidence is in my strength as a passer, my level 1 ball, that fastball.
Yeah.
you lose all this atrophy in your arm, you don't throw it as hard.
Yeah.
So it definitely affected my mental of like, hey, I want to be able to fit a ball into a window.
Yeah.
You know, what's that like? How much rip am I getting on that ball?
Mm-hmm.
And to lose that, it's tough.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so when the injury happened, prior to the injury, did you have any offers or what was going on?
Yeah, so at that time I had a couple FCS offers, like we talked about, Illinois State,
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville State, Eastern Illinois. I had Marshall University was my main FBS offer. And then I had a ton of like lower level D1s that were all like flirting with it. You know, I had taken visits to Wisconsin, Maryland, and then even week 2, we played a school called Atlantic High School in Delray Beach, where we live now. And that school puts out a ton of guys to the NFL. So I had tore them up at halftime of the game. FSU's funny enough, Bob Stoops' brother, Mark Stoops,
No way.
yeah, was actually at Kentucky as a D coordinator at the time,
Yeah.
or at FSU as D coordinator at the time. He was recruiting my area. They had a high-profile guy decommit. I was already committed to Marshall.
Yeah.
The week 2 of my senior year before I'm injured, you know, we had got off to a hot start. You know, things were going really well. He came up to me at halftime and said, "We're actually at the urinal." I'm in the bathroom. He flags me down at the urinal and is saying, "Hey, like, we lost our commitment. We're looking to bring in a quarterback, and hey, you keep playing like this, you're going to be our guy." And that was my dream school. Both my sisters went there. So that was ecstatic about that.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of schools like that reaching out, wanting to see your first 4 games your senior year.
Yeah.
So then when you get hurt, obviously I was like, thankfully I had Marshall already and was already committed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really good spot to fall back on.
Yeah. Good thing you had that. You probably, what could have been if you did, live out your senior year, didn't get injured, but
Yeah, a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas, and
yeah,
that's life.
that's in everything. Yeah. So you do go to Marshall, and what happened there? You're
So I'm an early enrollee. At that
Yeah.
time in 2013, that was like a new deal, which obviously, the high school landscape of recruiting and transfer portal is nuts now.
Yeah.
But back then, that was a new deal. So I left at December. I was still in getting out of a sling, like on my way to school.
Yeah.
So that spring ball was my first time like throwing again. So you
Yeah.
got to think, you're already the youngest in the room. You're trying to prove yourself. Now that was the mental psyche of coming in without your physical talents being ready to go.
Yeah.
So that was where it was like, man, like I wasn't playing as good. I wasn't throwing as good. I had to kind of like relearn how to throw. And when you're away at college, I think we had 2 weeks off max
Yeah.
in the summer. Like you're there for both summer sessions. So I had a private quarterback coach who I kind of grew up with. He inspired me to do what I do today. His name's Eric Kresser. He played at University of Florida and for the Cincinnati Bengals. Also played at Marshall.
Oh.
So he played at Florida, was behind Danny Werfel, who won a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
And then he transferred to play with Randy Moss at Marshall.
Oh, my
and they
God.
won a national championship.
Wow.
So funny enough that they ended up recruiting me, and I ended up going to Marshall as well.
Yeah.
So, but the fact that is, I didn't have time to go see my quarterback coach help me learn my stroke back, learn my throw back after coming out of a sling with all this atrophy and just like not a healthy biomechanical like makeup.
Yeah.
My muscles were fatigued. I'm trying to throw all arm. And so that's something that where you go to college, and it's something we talk about all the time. Jordan Palmer would talk about it at the XFL camps, is misleading communication. Well, you've got your quarterback coach in college who typically those are scheme guys.
Yeah.
They don't understand how to move the body to create a better throw, but they understand the X's and O's.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to give you certain type of messaging of you should do this, you should do that.
Yeah.
Your coach back home's telling you something else. All these different people telling you how to be an athlete.
The other crazy thing about it is like some of these coaches in college, position coaches, some of them haven't played that position. Like I actually
Absolutely.
coached Division III at University of St. Thomas. They're now
Okay.
Division I.
Is that in
1AA.
Miami?
No, it's in St. Paul,
St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay.
Yeah. I played defensive back in college. I played running back in high school. I was the running backs coach at St. Thomas. I was like, oh, should I be the DBs coach? And they're like, nope, running backs all we got available.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And there's other people on the staff that I'm sure in other places too that are coaching positions that they haven't coached before.
Oh, everywhere across the football landscape.
Yeah.
Like when I got to Marshall, that was another point. I got recruited by a guy named Jaywan Sider, who's from Palm Beach County, who's now the running back coach at Penn State,
Mm-hmm.
has been there for like 6 years, recruited Saquon, etc. He was my recruiting coordinator, who used to play quarterback as well. He played quarterback at West Virginia. And my quarterback coach was Tony Peterson. I get there in January. They both leave that week.
Oh, God.
So J1 goes to WU.
Yeah.
Tony Peterson goes to Louisiana La Tech.
Yeah.
And so that was my quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator. So what happens? He leaves. The O-line coach becomes quarterback coach. His name's slipping me right now, but it's going to come to me. He becomes our quarterback coach. So they put the O-line, a guy who played O-line his whole life, becomes our quarterback coach.
Yeah.
So talking to the other quarterbacks, we go from like having set footwork, set way of doing things to just no footwork. So, hey, whatever footwork you want to take on this throw, you take.
Oh, okay.
Which from a quarterback standpoint, now I coach quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That's not how you do it.
No.
You know, oh, his name is Bill Legg. Great scheme guy.
Mm-hmm.
But so he wouldn't take anything the hard way. He played O-line. He's not going to know the fundamentals of how to be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
However, his scheme was off the charts, and we were 11-1, and Rakeem Cato is our starting quarterback.
Cato.
Yep.
Yeah, I know Cato because I used him in NCAA football.
Yep, that was the last year. I'm in that game. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was so sick. When I was reading that, I'm like, oh, Cato. Okay, now I see why he was behind him. So yeah, you were all that stuff happened, and you decided to transfer to Fordham.
Mm-hmm. However, as I was transferring, the reason why it was such a good opportunity, it was like I had to wait because they had a guy named Michael Niebrick, who was the runner-up to the the Heisman Trophy for FCS.
Walter Payton Award?
Walter Payton Award.
Yeah.
So he was the runner-up to the champion. He was first-team All-American. They were lights out. OC, our head coach was Joe Moorhead, who went on to become OC for Saquon Barkley at Penn State, then head coach Mississippi State, then OC Oregon. So, he ascended right after that. I had 1 year with him. So the opportunity was, hey, they had 4 senior quarterbacks and nobody else. So I'd come in, sit. I had 1 touchdown that year. They used me in some packages and stuff, like sprinkled me in. And then after that, it was going to be mine for 3 years. Yeah. And that was kind of how it went. And, man, best decision I could have ever made.
I would say, yeah. Like you said, you had that 1 rushing touchdown in 2014, 2015. Your first start is against Army, and you guys win 37-35. You pass for 322 yards, rush for a touchdown. That's amazing for your first start.
I mean, I always get chills even thinking about that because that was such a wild game for, like my psyche, like you said, go from going to a D1, thinking you can go to a D1 school or a better school or ready to have a 6 senior year, then to go to Marshall and then to be injured and have to transfer down, like that stuff's tough on your mental as an athlete and believing in yourself. So then to come out week 1, I don't know if you know how I started that game.
No.
So I start the game, first play with a fumble.
Oh, no.
So it's a zone read, and we were in a RPO scheme where a lot of nickel pressures equal a bubble throw. Well, they schemed us up. They had a covered down. They broke our rules. They gave me a blitz off the edge where I should pull the ball and throw. However, it was like a mesh charge by the DN, which is typically like a harder read. And I tried to avoid him. He tackles me, knocks the ball out. They scoop the ball and get tackled at the 5-yard line. So you're playing week 1 against an FBS opponent where you're already like a 20-point underdog going into the game. And then now you give them the ball at the 10-yard line. So they score a touchdown the very next play. Yeah. And it's like, man, you're looking yourself in the mirror. You're like, how's this going to go? Am I going to suck or am I going to really turn this around?
Well, I mean, all that waiting, I'm sure all the stuff that you probably went through mentally, you stayed focused and you came through. And then following a couple games against Columbia, 5 touchdowns. You guys won the Liberty Cup. You follow that up against Monmouth, 5 more touchdowns passing. So you're the man now.
It got to a hot start at the beginning. Week 1, I actually had 1 rushing touchdown. But there was like 2 or 3 that should have been in that. For whatever reason, I think they were somewhat of drops and things of that nature, which happen. Yeah. But so then to be like, man, like I still haven't had my first passing touchdown. Yeah. It's week 2. That was Villanova, who had the number 1 defense at the time in the country. They ended up having like 5 guys go to the NFL. So that's when I finally got my first touchdown. And then That was just one. Then it came in buckets.
Yeah.
So week 1 through week 2, I only had 1 passing touchdown. Through week 4, I had 11.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah. Great year. You followed up. You had 2,700 yards passing, 27 touchdowns. The following year, you were just lights out and ended up finishing your career there. 73 passing touchdowns, which set the record. And I think over the time, in different parts of your time at Fordham, you were like in top 10 overall in Division I for passing touchdowns, and at Fordham in like completion percentage, I think you're in top 5, I guess.
Yeah, I think efficiency, I was top 3 touchdowns that sophomore year. So, and it's funny because like you check that as a player. Like I remember like not worrying about it until like week 8. I'm like, damn, I'm sitting here with like 30 touchdowns. Like where's everybody else at?
Yeah.
And it's such a year to year, because that year I had sophomore year I had like you said 31 or 32 and finished 3rd in the country. Then my junior year I had 28 and finished like 5th. But that year the dude from San Houston State had like 58.
Wow.
Whereas like the sophomore year I missed having first place by like 3. Like whoever had number 1 was like 35.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how like your total is based on year.
Yeah.
The production, some years are bigger years than others.
Yeah.
And that junior year, dude had 58, which is like ridiculous.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
So how was playing football in the Bronx, or going to college in the Bronx?
It was awesome. I'm thankful, sitting in the corner here is my girlfriend, who we've been dating for 6 years, who ran track at Fordham. So we met, best decision I ever made, getting to meet her in college. And so that was our little love story, going to school there. That was a blast. It's cool because nothing closes until 4 a.m. So as a young college student, you're like a 15-minute train ride to downtown Manhattan.
Yeah.
For like, I think it was like $6 and a 15-minute ride, you're at Grand Central Station.
Yeah.
So that was super cool because even before, 18, 19, like instead of being on like a college city where it's like the traditional
middle of nowhere,
we're in the middle of New York City, like the things that you can get into in New York City are obviously endless.
Yeah.
So being young and having the world in your hands, we had a lot of fun and made some lasting memories, a lot of great guys. And but it was definitely different than the typical college life.
Following Fordham, you end up going to the AAF, the Alliance of America Football, right?
Yeah.
Which was only around for
8 weeks.
We got through. 8 weeks. They had a big draft and all this stuff, and I forget how that ended up collapsing, but you were on the Orlando Apollos, right?
Yeah.
So at least so you moved back home, right? Or is that closer to home?
Yeah. So Orlando is like 3 hours north of home. But there was like, the gap. So I graduated early from college as well.
Yeah.
Luckily did a 5th year, got my master's from Fordham, which is a great decision, in media management, which has been kind of like, a great addition to the resume for what I'm like trying to go into now for my career in the long term. And so that had me finishing college in the spring as well. So then January hit, I came down to Boca and trained at XPE Sports. Ran by Tony Villani and now Matt Gates, who they moved it to Fort Lauderdale. But they're like one of the top performance centers in the country. They had, not this year, but last year, 2 of the 3 4.2s at the 40-yard dash at the combine.
Wow.
So just guys that train CeeDee Lamb, Travis Kelce, Mark Ingram. So some of the best facilities are down in South Florida.
Yeah.
So I went and trained there for months. Well, hey, my name didn't get called in the NFL draft. No undrafted free agent, which was pretty disheartening at the time because, we felt pretty confident that I was at least going to get a rookie mini camp.
Yeah.
Being a record holder and having a high production. But I got hurt the last 4 games my senior year, which NFL is a what have you done lately league. And, if whatever way you're trending, usually that's how it goes. So unfortunately, I didn't get my name called at all. Stayed home and trained.
Yeah. And
then that January after, towards the end of the NFL season is when really it was like November, December is when they started doing an AAF combine, things of that nature. And like you look back, guys that I originally met, I remember, I haven't even told him this yet, but I should remind him, Luis Perez, who's my counterpart now, we both were playing catch the night before the quarterback combine of the AAF. This had to have been like November of 2018.
Okay.
And a bunch of guys like, hey, let's get some throws in. They had new footballs they came out with. And we just randomly were all in a group of quarterbacks talking. I was like, hey, you want to play catch? And we met each other, started playing catch in like a field in the dark under a light at like 8 p.m. In San Antonio, Texas.
You never brought this up to him?
Well, no, we've known each other a long time from the AAF, from other leagues, so we've had a lot of experiences. But that was the very first time was before a combine. So then you look at the guys that I've met there who played in the AAF. Well, that's where Brandon Silvers played for Memphis. I didn't know him at the time, but I knew Hackenberg at the time from the combine.
Yeah.
Who Christian Hackenberg was a name in that league. Luis was in that league. You know, a bunch of dudes that were in that league that are still even now in the XFL or USFL. So it's crazy how the alt league world has transpired to today.
Yeah. Did you? A couple of games were played, right?
Yeah, 8 games.
8
so
games.
8 weeks.
Yep. 8 weeks, and then it just shut down.
Yeah, I like to call it the Fire Festival of alt football. You know, it's it was Charlie Ebersole who just kind of has a. When you talk to him and you see him, it just kind of has a cheesy aspect. You're like, man, is this guy for real?
Yeah.
You know, like it's a lot of too good to be trues with him. You know, he probably feels like he could land a ship on the moon or something. You know, but so it was all too good to be true.
Yeah,
and I think they are spending money and they took care of us beautifully. And it was like $70K for the season, which was a really good. You know, it's better than.
Did
what
they pay you out even though they don't?
For the 8 weeks, yeah, we got paid out for every game.
Okay.
We didn't have it as bad. That was a different model. So like a lot of the USFL, XFL hub model wasn't thought of at the time. And this is before they even had a TV deal. So, you know, like USFL, they're a company that is owned by Fox.
Yeah.
This was Fox actually aired the games for AAF. However, it was its own private company that raised the money. And that was really just a default credit card. You know, going on and on, but we had steak for dinner, salmon. Like they gave us the best meals. We flew charter planes.
That's where that money went.
Yeah, we were all in our own city.
Yeah.
So we were in Orlando. Each team was in there. There was Salt Lake, so there's a lot of different markets involved. And you know, eventually that money dried up. People started asking for, "Hey, when's that gonna hit?"
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, that fell apart. So then. Following that, it looks like you attempted to get into the CFL, picked up by a couple teams. So Winnipeg, Ottawa. Tell me what happened in the CFL.
So CFL is interesting. Right after the AAF, Winnipeg invited me to workouts, and CFL is like, you know, went to the workout. They invited me to rookie mini camp. Went to rookie mini camp, did really well there. Went to main camp, and then I thought I was going to make the team. They end up. It was between me and a guy, I forget his name, but he also played special teams. So he was a guy who they could use with a lot of different hats and stuff, and he was more of a Taysom Hill body type.
Yeah.
So we are different, and when you go to Canada, like as an American, like I talk to guys all the time, like different quarterbacks. Hey, what do you think about CFL? Blah blah blah. Like it's not like these alternate leagues where, yeah, maybe like in our situation, Kyle was going in with the most money behind the scenes, with the most, you know, experience. But there's still an open competition. In the CFL, like you're a rookie. You're getting $55K Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
And the starter was forget his name, Matt. It'll come to me, but Matt something or other. And he was making like $500,000. So like there was no open competition. Like, you're really competing with only the number 3. So I was a number 4 competing with the number 3. They end up going another direction. Then like so they cut me. I decided to move back to New York City, start to work on like I knew I was going to wait for like the XFL because that was coming and they were like, you know, advertising it for 2020. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll go get an internship in New York City.
Yeah.
Start to build my plan B for after football. 3 weeks later, Winnipeg calls back, signs me again. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go up there. That's fine. I'm like, look, I don't only want to go if I'm active because the money for inactive wasn't great.
Yeah.
However, the inactive was a weekly deal. So it provided flexibility if I needed to get out of and to try and get to XFL. So I was there for about 3 weeks. It started getting freezing cold. They supposedly were going to activate me the week I got there.
Yeah.
So then now instead of getting whatever 4 or 5K a week in Canadian, which also then gets taxed crazy, it's, you know, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
I'm only getting 800 a week. So I'm like, all right, well, I had a bunch of stuff set up back in the States. This just isn't for me. Like, let's just go different ways. I thought I was going to be under a different understanding. And the OC at the time was not happy. He wanted me to hang around because the starter was last year of his contract. He's like, you're young, just deal with it, blah, blah, blah. And I just, I was like, all right, this just isn't for me. We'll part ways.
Yeah.
So that's La Police, Paul La Police, who at that year, I leave the team. They end up winning the championship.
Oh, God.
So he ends up then, the starter gets hurt, just like he said.
Yeah.
The backup comes in, doesn't do good. They end up signing a free agent who starts the last 4 games of the year. Zach Colarasso or something. He ends up winning the Grey Cup.
Jeez.
So plays in like 6 total games.
Yeah.
3 of them being a playoff game and a championship.
Wow.
So it's like theoretically that could have been me, and that's what he was saying to me the whole time. So now because they have the number 1 offense, Paul LaPolice gets the head job at Ottawa.
Oh. So
I go through the XFL ranks. Tampa is going to potentially sign me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like to be their third. They were like in love with what's the guy from Georgia, the shorter guy, Murray. Aaron Murray.
Aaron Murray, yeah.
Yeah. And he was in the AAF on the team that didn't win a game and did bad, got benched. Mm-hmm. I was on the number 1 team behind Garrett Gilbert, who like I was the number 2. And, even I saw Steve Spurrier the other day. He was at one of our games. He's like, man, he's like, if Garrett stayed healthy, he's like, otherwise we'd have loved to see what you could do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he goes on to play 5 more years in the NFL.
Yeah, Garrett Gilbert could sling it. He was at Texas, then he went to SMU, and then I think he was on the Cowboys.
Cowboys, bit, right? Redskins. He won a Super Bowl with the Patriots as a backup. He ended up getting like 8 or 9 vested years.
Yeah.
He had like 4 before the AAF.
Yeah.
Then played another 5. So that was the craziest part, was like, all right, I'm in this league. Aaron Murray got benched on his team, didn't win a game. I'm like, you'd think, hey, so they were looking at me more as a number 3 and him as the number 1. So I was like, okay, now La Police, the Canadian coach, he gets the head job, offers me $10K extra and like off the side kind of deals. As a rookie in Canada, their first 2 years, you have to be at the base.
Yeah.
So it was no wiggle room, but they were able to give me housing stipend, a little bit of side money. It equaled like $10K extra.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, he really believes in me. You got to go where you're loved.
Mm-hmm.
I signed to Canada, but I had to wait 6 months. So I'm at home.
Why is that?
It was like right before the XFL season was going to start, and the Canadian season had ended. So it was just the Canadian off season. Okay. They're signing quarterbacks. So I was like, all right, why go as a number 3 where I can go as a number 2 and compete for the job at a team that hadn't won a game the year prior? So I was like, all right, we go up there. COVID happens.
I know.
I'm under contract for 1.5 years with the CFL. We never even go up.
Wow.
We're doing Zoom meetings once every week.
Yeah. Installing
offense that I never played in.
And you probably weren't allowed in, right? Because you were in America and they weren't letting people in.
Absolutely. It was fully shut down. They got shut down for 1 year. I was under contract, sitting on my hands.
Wow.
So then they gave an opportunity where you can be exempt for your contract. And that was when the spring league was starting. So I remember, me and this coach, whatever, we got it. And like, he just, for the life of him, couldn't understand why I was leaving him again. And I'm like, coach, like, I've been under contract for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
He like, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even play for you. Like, so, there was a lot.
He was probably like, last time I told you not to leave, we won the Grey Cup, and you're going to leave again?
Absolutely. Well, he left it open to me for like 3 weeks, texting me, hey, like, what are you thinking, blah, blah, blah. And at the time, like, my grandfather was sick, and I was like, listen, coach, like, it's more important for me to be home right now and potentially pursue an opportunity in the States just to help support my family. And, he couldn't understand it for a second. So our last conversation was rough and we split ways, but it ended up being that I got to play in that first spring league. It was only 3 games and got good film, did well. I was home for my family and my grandfather passing, where I wouldn't have been home for, which was important to me. So it all worked out. And then that's what got me back into the spring league again for the second one, where I was with Brandon and AJ Smith and guys like that.
Yeah. So you were on the Conquerors, was it?
Yeah, so it's funny. The first Conquerors stint was with Jerry Glanville. They both were. But it was only 3 games because that was also as COVID was starting. So it was like I missed the XFL. XFL season was going on as the Spring League training camp was going on.
Yeah.
So I got out of Canada, joined the Spring League while watching XFL on TV. They were kind of going in tandem. XFL failed or shut down because COVID. we went on for like another week or two to where like one team, like the whole team got COVID. And they just had to shut down the operation because it was one hotel, hub mentality, and it just spread.
Yeah.
So I had 3 games, and they signed week 3 Cole McDonald. So for one game, Cole was my backup, and that was one of my best games where I went for like 330 yards, and we beat Bethel Thompson's team, who's now the star for the U.S. for the Breakers, won the Grey Cup last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the amount of guys between me, Luis, Brandon, Bethel Thompson, all these different guys, it's crazy how we've all been kind of bouncing around this realm, trying to get better as players and find homes and get quality film to get to the league,
Yeah. Brandon Silvers, you said, he was on your team. He went to Troy. Mm-hmm. He was on, or is still on, the Houston Roughnecks, right? So I guess that gets us back to the XFL, because you guys just beat the Houston Roughnecks. But the XFL was a league that was run by Vince McMahon. Then it shut down, and it got brought back by The Rock, right? He's the main owner, I'm guessing.
He's like a minority owner, I believe. I think in the grand scheme of things, because it's really expensive. I know he was part of the buy-in process because they bought the XFL through the bankruptcy court.
Yeah.
Because that's what Vince really, WWE travels around the country, and they have in-person shows. Like one of their biggest venues, other than their own networks, which they have like Spike TV and like TNT, they show their stuff. One of their main revenue models is apparel. WWE sells a ton of apparel and toys and belts, and they go from city to city, and ticket sales and apparel is a huge part of it. Well, COVID hit, and he started hemorrhaging. So they had to shut down the XFL, and I don't think he wanted to give it up. But if it wasn't for COVID, Vince McMahon would still be running it. I mean, they were crushing it at the time. The numbers in DC was the hottest team. They were killing it. Houston was killing it. Mm-hmm. The numbers were great on the streaming, was better than it was even now. Wow. So I think The Rock and Redbird Capital is their partner. Mm-hmm. So that's a firm based out of New York City, I believe. And Redbird Capital owns the hockey team in New Jersey, or a soccer team in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
So they're the main owners with The Rock, Danny Garcia. Yeah. But now The Rock is like the face of it.
Yeah. Well, tell me about kind of how that is as a player being in the XFL now. How do they? I know you said in the AF they were feeding you steaks, doing this or that. What's the difference, the feel to a player in the XFL now?
It's honestly very close to comparable. The AAF may have treated us slightly better, but it was like to the point where they went bankrupt. You know what I mean? So is that the best model? I can't say that is true. Yeah. But the XFL has treated us great, and I have a great relationship with the front office there. Russ Brandon, shout out to him. He is I believe the president. And he's just got great leadership. I've spoken with him on numerous occasions. Longtime NFL GM with the Bills, lots of different teams. So just, they hired some quality front office NFL guys who are just in the second phase of their career. They've been in the NFL 30 years. They're still very well connected, but they're the perfect guys to help these leagues. Yeah. Which have proven, in my opinion, now being just a cog in all these alternate football leagues, but seeing it from firsthand, they're doing a phenomenal job, and they're here to stay, and alt football is here to stay.
Yeah. And the understanding is that XFL is kind of a feeder to the NFL, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's already been 25 guys who've gotten rookie minicamp. Wow. And that's not counting DC or Arlington, who haven't been able to because we have the championship game coming up. Yeah. So those are two of the best. I mean, you'd say two of the best teams are in the championship. So that you'd have to think there's plenty of guys in those rosters that would get rookie minicamps.
So are the contracts kind of friendly to the player in that aspect?
Absolutely. So the contract is set up where it is fluid to the NFL. Mm-hmm. If an NFL team wants you, they let you free. But that's after May 15th. Mm-hmm. You can sign a contract. All the teams that aren't still playing, so every team but us. Yeah. Those guys can sign at any time now because their season is over. Technically, our contracts are through December. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a reason to protect from a USFL jump, potentially. Yeah. Because these two leagues carrying over. But no, I believe that, even more guys will get signed and get workouts. Are all those guys going to get signed? No. But the fact is they're getting an opportunity.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, I think in the past when Vince McMahon came out, at least what the thought was the XFL is going to be the new league. Like it's going to take over and like they're going to be in competition with the NFL. It feels better to know that this is a league that's here to help the development of the players, have them reach their peak and potentially go to the NFL. So
yeah, I think it's football right now. That's like from the business side back home in Florida. That's something that I'm just like woven through every single layer of it.
Yeah.
I work with elementary, middle, high school, college.
Yeah.
Where I work with XPE and Bomberitos, help them with draft prep. So I help them with pro development. So I'm throwing to NFL receivers, every offseason as part of their facility training.
Yeah.
So like Pete Bomberitos is a facility down in Miami that works with a ton of Drew Rosenhaus clients. So they just their client list is off the charts. So a lot of times Pete pays Anderson Passing Academy, me or my assistant coach, to go down and throw to these NFL receivers. So maybe some days it's 5-10 routes, maybe some days it's 30 routes. So based on what day of the week they're on their linear, their lateral training, their swim days, he fits in certain days where maybe it's just ball drills. But I make sure there's an arm there to help facilitate these guys' workouts.
Yeah.
So he actually calls me his offensive systems coach. So that's been a little angle now where, I'm not training like a high school or middle school or college quarterback, but I'm in fact doing the actual setup of the workout of, hey, this receiver needs 4 out cuts that are a speed break. He needs 3 square cuts on an inside break from his left leg and right leg. Like we're trying to analyze, hey, we don't want to overload any type of cut that's going to lead to an off-season injury so it's all about bringing these athletes to a peak.
Yeah.
So that's a part of the another way that I'm woven into all this. So being in the alt league space and seeing all that has just given me a good perspective of where football is going to go. So for me, I think XFL, USFL, they're really going to start to compete with college in a way. Because now, and that's another point, is I started an NIL company called Reach. So Reach NIL is going to be, we made the LLC about 3 months ago, so it's in a soft release now. Yeah. But we're really going to start to push it here after the XFL season. And so how NIL has changed the college landscape, those guys are getting paid now. Yeah. So, and like institutions are like, fine, like we'll pay them. We want them to get paid. Top universities are creating collectives so that way they can help facilitate in the recruitment and payment of players. So now you look at it, it's like, well, what's the difference between what we're doing and alt league? We're post-collegiate athletes as far as degrees stand for, but we're getting paid. So I think it's a perfect filter between college and the pros. Yeah. Guys go to college. It helps the NFL because maybe they start going for XFL before college guys.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because, different colleges, when you're getting recruited and let's say you're transferring or doing whatever, let's say you go to a school and the coaches leave. The guy who recruited you, whether it be the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the quarterback's coach, that was your guy. He saw your potential. He knew what you would be, whether he thought you'd start year 1 or year 3 or whatever it'd be. He's gone. New guy comes in. He kind of wants to recruit and he wants to put his stamp on that program, and he doesn't know you too well. He wants to find his own guy.
Absolutely.
So, how many players, not just players, let's just go with quarterbacks right now. Quarterbacks, do you think were sitting second string, third string, not because of their talent, just because of other circumstances, whether it be coach like that? And I think that's why the XFL and other leagues are good, because maybe a guy was sitting second string, only played 1 year, or got injured. He has more potential than maybe some guys in the NFL, but he had no outlet to show it, and he would just go into sales, go do whatever.
That happens all the time at the college level and the pro level. Like I was a perfect example. I almost switched to linebacker and just stayed at Marshall and just said, screw it. I like it here. I've got good friends. Like, maybe quarterback's not working out. Yeah. You start to question your beliefs. Yeah. I mean, your belief in yourself. So then you look at that and it's like, okay, well then I transfer and become a record holder, have a ton of success. And then now we look back and it's like, look at how many guys in my high school graduation class are still playing football. Yeah. It's like me, Jared Goff, and like 3 or 4 others max. Yeah. The 100 different guys that like At my highest ranking at one point, it was like 28th on ESPN in the country, and then eventually fell to like the mid 30s, 40s. Out of those 100 guys ranked pro style, dual threat, there's like 4 still playing.
That's crazy.
So you look at that, and it's like people at the time, like when we and you were playing, people would knock a kid. You know, there's you just got to stick to where you're at and outwork your circumstances to be great. And it's like the politics. Another point that you were bringing up some points. One other point to add to that is, well, hey, I'm a coach at Marshall University, a position coach who's brand new from somewhere else. The better the guy I recruit plays, the better I can say, hey, I'm a good recruiter.
Yeah.
So in the college landscape, part of getting jobs is how good of a recruiter are you?
Yeah.
So now you're not even subconsciously, you're biased to help the guy you recruited. So when I was at Marshall, there was a quarterback under me who passed me very quickly in spring. I found out they're doing private meetings behind my back, you know, learning system, scheme behind my back. And I'm like, is this a fair opportunity? And it didn't feel like that. And that's why I kind of got out of it.
Yeah, it was a good thing that you did move on.
But that happens at every university all across the country.
And that's, you know, people are, when they think about the transfer portal, and, you know, I guess it can be thought in 2 ways. Like, why don't you just stay and compete? Why don't you, you know, there's that aspect. But it's like, you only have this little time, 4 years, 5 years max, to showcase what you can do. And if you're on the bench for 3 or 4 of those years, what are you doing? Because if you, let's say you do stay there and you end up becoming the quarterback for Marshall your senior year, or your redshirt senior year, so it's your 5th year. Let's say same thing happened to you that happened in high school. You get injured.
Yeah.
Well, you got no tape now.
Absolutely.
And what are you going to do?
That has happened. So many quarterbacks' careers have been ended because of any of those number of situations you brought up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the sad truth in athletics, is that you got to be really good, but there's a lot of BS you got to weave through.
Yeah. So on the Renegades, you're not the starter. You have played a couple of games, but tell me what that has done for you. You have a passing academy. What are your goals? Are you trying to become a coach eventually down the line? Are you still going for trying to be the starter at another program next year within the NFL? Tell me what your goals and your plans are, and what this experience with the Renegades has done for you.
Yeah, so this experience has been great. It's always a blessing to still be playing football. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. And because of the situations and the circumstances I've already been in with the CFL and COVID and having a year off, like many athletes, I've been forced to either, hey, go get a job because you have to provide for yourself, and have the ability to train. Well, those things are double-edged sword. The training is expensive and it takes time. So if I know as a pro athlete, I typically need 3 to 4 full hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week to make sure I'm ready for that call to come.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens when that call comes and you go out there and you do horrible?
Yeah.
I mean, that's your shot. You blow it, you blow it. So free agents, you know, that's a grueling process where you have to be ready at all times when there's nobody in your corner other than family and friends, but there's no staff that wants to pick you up. There's nobody that believes in you at the time. You know, it's all about how you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So that gave me the opportunity and forced me to start to plant little seeds, you know. And I still say to this day, if it wasn't for Anderson Passing Academy and the hundreds of kids that I've worked with over the past almost 3 years now, I wouldn't physically be in the shape to go out and still play in this XFL season.
Yeah.
You know, like if I had a choice, go make money or train to be a football player. And I found a way to do both. So I was like, hey, there's some days where I'm on the field for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
But I'm making really good money doing what I love, getting better at my craft.
Yeah.
So that honestly made me better from even when I was in Canada as a player. So even now in today's game, like, do I think I can play? Absolutely. Like, I feel like, you know, obviously Luis, we have a great relationship. He's a great guy. I don't wish anything bad on him at all. If the time came where in this championship game, he has to come out of the game for whatever reason, I'm prepared to go in and win the game. You know, like that's something I think about on a regular basis and I prepare for, you know, because whether it's this season, and I think Luis has been playing at such high level, he deserves a shot in the NFL, you know, because there's plenty of young college quarterbacks who get drafted high and then they go to a P squad. And then it shows they can't process and they can't actually think as good as guys who have been playing ball for a long time. And then what happens? They get funneled right back down to a top XFL guy, to then a backup XFL guy to out of the league.
Yeah.
So from alt league to XFL 2020 to USFL to XFL 2023, you know how many guys came in with high contracts or the guy and end up benched or out of football?
Yeah.
Every year you see it. So what the XFL does is it's a sidebar here is it now filters through free agents, because there's plenty of guys, like the recruiting process is not fully accurate. Guys go to the NFL and they're a bust.
Yeah.
And it happens every year. So then now they get paid all this money and that can contribute to them being a bust. Then they get filtered to XFL. And now instead of being one of the 20 guys on a list of top workout guys, they go on the field. And instead of being a backup in the NFL for 3-4 years where you don't play in games, you're getting evaluated on practice.
Yeah.
The quarterback position, if you're getting hit, that is a totally different deal. So from being in the pocket, making decisions, and wearing a red jersey in practice, to being in a game, that exposes a lot of top recruits, athletes in the free agent market. So many guys on my team have been on a P squad for 3 years. Now they're in the XFL, get an opportunity to get new film to get back there.
Yeah.
What happens, a lot of them, they get to the XFL and they get exposed or, so it's a filter for the NFL.
Can't forget to mention this episode is brought to you by our sponsors, ProSups and their pre-workout Nightmare. This gives you a clean energy and great focus so you can get in the gym. Also brought to you by our other sponsor, Shank It Golf. Shank It Golf has great hats and polos. It's all about having fun playing golf. I am a horrible golfer, but nice. I love to hang out with my buddies and getting one great drive or one great putt brings me back the next day. You could go to shankitgolf.com and use promo code Stars Volta, that's one word, and you'll get 15% off of anything that you purchase there. So tell everybody how they can find you on social media. Tell them about the Anderson Passing Camp and how someone can sign up or get their kid to go there.
So Anderson Passing Academy is on all social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's just now getting on TikTok. We'll be on LinkedIn here soon. YouTube as well. It's surprising. Like, I haven't done that great with YouTube as far as investing my time and posting. However, some of my best clients have come from YouTube. I have an assistant coach who's running Anderson Passing Academy from the day-to-day right now back in Florida. You'd be able to reach out through any social page, all the phone numbers on there, call me. And so a lot of it is all word of mouth. As far as social media and word of mouth, that's the number one way we reach all of our clients.
So is it on, let's say, Instagram, is it at Anderson?
At Anderson Passing Academy across all platforms. I believe Twitter's Anderson Passing. So
wish you well in the game. I hope you guys, become the underdog victory, get the underdog victory again, hoist that championship trophy. And thank you so much for joining us. And wish you luck in your future too.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, everybody who's listening, thank you for listening. If you want to watch the video version, go to YouTube. It's at Stars Volta. And if you're watching and you just want to listen to the car, it's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify. Pretty much anywhere you can find your podcast and listen to it, it's there. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you later. Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye.